Hey there, welcome to the REI Conversion Podcast, where each episode we discuss strategies and digital tools to help you launch, automate, and scale your real estate investing business. Learn how to run your investing business remotely, find out ways to automate your business to better utilize your time, and learn what other successful investors are implementing so you can get to the next step closer to your investing goals. And I'm your host and founder of REI Conversion, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the REI Conversion Podcast. I've got a special guest here today. His name is Peter. Peter is a very young land investor, but has done some very, very interesting things, especially with his marketing. I'm sure you can get tons and tons of value out of this episode here. I'm super excited to share this one with you guys. But before we get started, this podcast is brought to you by REI Conversion. If you are looking for a system to help you simplify and streamline so that you can scale or buy back time from your land business, look no further than REI Pebble. In fact, one of the things that we really focus on here is to really optimize on your business, whether that's on your processes to your marketing. In fact, one of the things that I am a huge fan of is split testing, and Pebble makes this very easy. Now, what does that mean? Typically, with a county that you're mailing out to, what I do with my mailing, I always make sure I split test. I do half the county with letter version A and half the county with letter version B. I don't care what program you came out of or what an educator or another land investor told you, you don't know the truth of what letter performs the best unless you've optimized and tested for that. Every county is different, the landscape of land is changing, and the timing is also different. So you should always test your mailing campaigns. In fact, let me show you on my screen here how easy it is to run a split test inside of REI Pebble. Okay, so what you're looking at on my screen right now is our template library. This is my personal template library. You can always go to the master template library where we're always adding new templates from ourselves or other land investors as well who want to make that available. One of the things that I'm currently doing right now is a ranged offer letter. That was something that Travis King taught inside of one of our classroom series. If you're interested in checking that out, that is under our resources. I am currently running a campaign split testing a letter, a ranged offer letter, and then also a ranged offer postcard. Now, you can again select any template here and modify the template just for that. Now, when you're actually ready to run that split test, all you need to do is head over to your campaign, create a campaign for half the county to a letter, and create another campaign for the other half of that county with another letter. Then, what you're going to be able to track is your response rate. Your response rate is going to show you how many seller leads got back to you for that specific campaign. From there, I'll be able to make a decision based on data, and that's the response rate. I always want to aim for a higher response rate. If I know the postcard is performing better than my letter this time around, then I know that my next mailing, I should test that postcard against another version to continually to optimize on what performs the best and what gives me the best response rate. Remember, it is so important for us entrepreneurs to be able to actually optimize and make decisions based on data. And this is the information Pebble is going to give to you about your mailing. Anyways, let's get back to this podcast episode here today with Pete. Again, I'm sure you're going to get tons of value out of this one. I hope you guys enjoy it. Cheers. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from REI Conversion. I have Peter here with me. Pete, how are you doing today?
Wonderful.
Awesome. So Pete, there's so much to talk about. I jumped on a call with you recently and I found your strategy fascinating. I found you as a fascinating person, and you're a land investor, obviously. And I'd love to sort of talk all about that. So before we get to that, Pete, I want you to share a little bit about yourself and how you got into land first.
Absolutely. So once I silence my phone, the first thing I would say is like on the personal side. So as Jesse might bring this up shortly, I'm 24 years old. And last year I actually graduated from school. And I actually wasn't originally born in the United States. So we moved here when I was younger. I believe it was like when I was 14 or actually a little bit earlier than that. But went through, the typical schooling, high school, middle school, college. And when I was in about high school, I kind of started my entrepreneurial journey. I've started, many different types of companies like clothing, basically was just experimenting and trying to figure things out. And
Yes.
the way I got into land was when I was in college, I think the last year of school. So we've always heard like, oh, there's wealthy people that are, that become wealthy through real estate and all this good stuff. And oh, real estate makes the most millionaires. And that was all fine and great. The problem was when you're in your last year of college and, you don't have things like a W 2 or whatever to get qualified for loans. I found it hard to get involved in real estate, at least as an investor, on with the traditional stuff like buying houses and then renting them out. So I was exploring and I was like on like Google and I was looking up like what are other ways and angles to like get involved in real estate. And then I found this guy. His name was Matt Nunn from Nunn Land Sales. And he was advertising a piece of land. It was this rural, typical desert acreage in
Sure.
Arizona. And, and it was like, I think, a half acre or 1 acre or whatever.
Yeah.
And the price said $1,500. And when I was looking at houses or other things, those are hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I was like, wow. So this guy said the whole price of this land was $1,500. I wonder if I can buy it and if it'll go up in price in a couple years, or oh, it would be cool to have some kind of asset, especially for $1,500. So I
Yeah.
called him, and this guy, he picks up, and we're still good friends to this day.
Awesome.
And he was telling me, oh, there's this whole thing where people buy and sell land. And because I at first I was very skeptical. I was like, "There's no way this is real," because
Yeah.
I go on like Zillow or Redfin, the traditional MLS stuff, and I look at land, and it's the same story, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But he was telling me that what he does is he buys these like lower cost properties and then he resells them, and that's his entire business.
Yeah.
And then he brings up owner financing, which was when I got really excited. Because like for someone who's younger or who doesn't have access to traditional credit or mortgages and stuff like that, it was really cool that everyone can become landowners through this thing called owner financing. And there's like a whole side of the business. So to make this long story very short, is start he told me a lot about that business. He sent me a few resources, and the entrepreneurial bug, which has always been in me, I was like, okay, let me try to buy some of these properties. So I spent, I think, $1,500 or $2,000. I bought a couple parcels from him, and then I made a website and started marketing it on the free like land marketing websites. Got a
Yeah.
few leads, and calls me like, oh, so you're willing to sell this property for $99 a month for 36 months. And yeah, and that's how we got started. And literally every day when I drove back from school, I had like an hour commute. I would listen to every podcast. And I think one of them was yours. It was yours, Ari Tipster,
Yeah.
and a few other ones.
Yeah.
And I just started learning and absorbing. And one thing led to another. And 2 years later, we're here.
How wild is that, hey? I wanted to make a comment. I think if anybody in their youth days did a clothing company, probably has that entrepreneurial bug. So keep that in mind. If you did close, because I did the same thing as well, so I know where you're coming from exactly. But anyways, one of the reasons why I brought you on the show when we were chatting was the fact of, first of all, Pete, you're so young at the age of 24. I'm not that old, and I still collect toys. But still, I mean, you got started at such a young age. Really, really cool. And I love to bring people that are just getting started, because there's a lot of things that you guys are doing differently from even some of the veterans out there. And lo and behold, when we started diving into the way you approach land, it was really interesting. You were not doing any mailers, and now we came onto a call to start talking about doing mailers through a system like Pebble. But I wanted to get an understanding of how you sort of approach the land, and your strategy to me. There's sort of this trend now with a lot of people focusing more on the acquisition side and less on the marketing side. And I think you've taken the complete opposite direction, right? You're focusing. I mean, you are focusing on both sides. Don't get me wrong, but you're focusing a lot more on the marketing side of things. Can you tell us a little bit about, on a very high level, what is your strategy like?
100%. First off, I think the reason why there's so much opportunity with the land thing is I noticed very early on, and when I was talking to other people in this business, that land seems to have like it's like an illiquid market almost, or it's less liquid than houses, right? Because a lot of banks don't loan on land, and the reason why I kind of chose to really focus on marketing and sales is um, I've noticed that like there's people that have been doing this for years. The land business, they've been doing this for years. They're very good. They have great systems built out for acquisitions, and I feel like a tremendous amount of value that you can add would be through marketing, right? And I felt like that was the missing. That was like I saw that as an opportunity. I was like, wow, I'm on these land websites, and no, barely, if you go down the street here in Chicago or where you're at, and you bring up this whole land thing, I bet you 8 out of 10 people don't know that this opportunity exists for them as a customer. So I was like, how can we, follow these like other big companies that are kind of taking age old businesses and just putting some nice marketing and like cool websites together.
Yeah,
And they're turning
yeah,
these into like unicorn companies where they just completely blow up. And so I've been on TikTok, for example, talking about marketing. I started that account 2 years ago when there was barely anyone on there. I think the only other person was Luke from Rural Vacant Land.
yeah.
And he was the first guy, I think, or one of the earlier people on TikTok. And I started building out that account. And, so kind of going into like marketing channels where it isn't traditional, right? You might post on Landwatch, but what about making YouTube videos or TikTok, right? There's so many different marketing channels, and I really focused on that, and we got a crazy amount of traction just off that TikTok account. One time, we went so viral on TikTok, our whole account, website crashed. It literally crashed, and it would not let people in. And I think we had like 20,000 visitors in one day.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Talk about focusing on, or experimenting with different channels too. Like, I had somebody, Mike Novak, who came on to talk about TikTok, but man, you were doing this a while back. I should have had you on here talking about TikTok.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So let's come to that marketing piece. Again, you focus on the marketing side. What other things have you tried that are, would you say, are not traditional, that have brought you some traction as well?
Hmm. I would say like the first thing would definitely be TikTok, right? And now we're experimenting with different things like blogs and YouTube videos.
Yeah,
Um, and there's a few, even writing a book for our
yeah,
customers on like the things you should know before buying land. So but the thing I would say is the best thing that's helped us is find one or two things that we found some traction in, and we're good at, and really maximize that.
yeah,
Now there's two other accounts that are separate from my main account, that they create the content and they post it, and all the traffic is headed straight to our website. So as we were kind of able to mature, we were kind of able to take over that niche on that platform. But when we were starting, it was just one or two specific things, and integrating things like Zapier, using Klaviyo for email marketing. So when someone joins our interest list on our website for the next 1 year, once a week, they're going to get an email.
yeah.
And it's not going to be a sales email about like,
Hmm.
buy this property or whatever.
Yeah.
That will be like the campaigns. But for once a year, I mean, once a week for a whole year, they're going to hear from us, and they're going to get
Wow.
educational content.
Yeah.
Um, and then we do SMS marketing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of like these different tools that traditional businesses use. And I was
Yeah.
just like, why can't we do this for the land business?
Absolutely.
And it's been really helpful.
Absolutely. You know, for a year is incredible that you've built out an automation to drip out email. Now, for those that are listening, we have a very short funnel. If you want to check it out, if you go to reiconversion.com/BLF for the buyer lead funnel, you can grab that as well. And we give you the scripts for that. And heck, if you can figure out how to continue to add value, build your trust, and warm those leads up, man, that is going to be awesome. To again, sometimes it's all about just bringing as much value as you can to the table for your leads to really get them warmed up. And once they're ready, they know who to come to. So another thing is, I wanted to ask you, Pete, would you be comfortable for us to include your TikTok account on the show notes so people can have a look at what you're doing?
100%.
You see the hesitation, like, Now, we can cut this out later if you don't want to include it, but how can people sort of find you on TikTok?
It is at thelandinvestor.
There you go. He's got that one, at thelandinvestor. Awesome. I'm gonna check that out. It sounds like a lot of fun on there, and obviously it's a source of lead that works for you. Now, let's come back to, again, your strategy. You're focusing a lot, I would say, like, on very digital forms of marketing for land. You're doing your a funnel to automate emails. You're doing things like ebooks, maybe for a lead magnet. I'm not sure exactly. You're using different social media tools out there. Let's talk about the acquisition side of things. What does that even look like for you? I mean, when we first talked, you were like, "Yeah, I'm not sending any mailing out." So, what's your secret?
Yeah, and it's actually, when I started this business, I saw the process that it goes into mailing, and I just saw a few ways that it could go wrong very quickly. So the first thing I did was, when we were printing T-shirts, right? I'm not going to go try to start my own T-shirt factory where we, make the fabric and then stitch them together and all this good stuff.
Right.
What we did is we just bought wholesale from companies like American Apparel, Gildan. And so I took that same model. I was like, I'm not going to go try to start like a factory and make these shirts and all this great stuff. I'm just going to go to the people that already do this, already have the inventory, and will sell it to me at a premium. So what we did is I just went on LandWatch, called up a bunch of companies. I'm like, hey, do you guys ever like wholesale land? Meaning, like, would you sell it to me in bulk?
Yeah.
And so None Land Sales, Matt, he supplied us with a couple parcels to begin with, right? It was three
Yeah.
parcels, and then next week he would text me like, hey, I got these two. I was like, all right, I'll take them. And then, we started doing that with multiple people, and every time they had inventory, they would text me or call me and say, hey, do you want this? I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And I would say the reason why we were able to scale from, like, the first three parcels to now over 1,300 something parcels is
That is
because,
mind blowing.
yeah, it's crazy. And the thing is, it was being very, because I know for a fact that if I tried doing that myself and sending all these
Yeah.
mailers, it would have not
Yeah.
happened.
Mhm.
The cost that goes into doing that many deals, and
Yeah.
to have the bandwidth to have like intake for inventory and stuff like that, it would just be really hard. So I would just call these companies that were advertising their pieces of land and be like, hey, I can't pay you retail, but what I can tell you is I'll pay you more than what you paid for it, and it's still a really healthy profit where we can provide liquidity to you and you don't have to deal with the retail customers. So
Yeah.
we'll worry about selling it. You can just sell it to us. Um,
I love it.
yeah, and
Now your prop. Sorry, so I'll let you keep going.
Oh no, I was gonna say there's more to it, and I would love to share, but I'm gonna let you. I'll take a break for a second because I've been going on and on.
No, you're good. And people are gonna kill me for interrupting. Like, Jesse, I wanted to hear what else you had to say. But all I was gonna say was, like, Pete, get ready, because there's gonna be a lot of people now who hear about you, are willing to, provide liquidity for their property and basically sell you a portfolio of properties and continue to work with you as you sort of do the marketing on those properties, which is, again, an awesome formula and something that you've built up for yourself. But coming back to what you're doing, so you are, essentially at the end of the day buying these properties at a wholesale price. I'm sure you've batched up a bunch of properties for them. And you mentioned you've gotten to 1,300 properties. How quick of a timeline did that look like?
It took us 2 years, and the reason why it would have taken us longer, but what we've done that has been interesting is all the profit and revenue and monthly payments that were coming in. I never took a salary from the business for the last 2 years, and everything was reinvested. So we would buy some, and then the thing is, it's like many people go through these like phases of we're going to buy a bunch and then we're going to sell a bunch. We're going to buy a bunch and we're going to sell a bunch. But I've always tried to figure out a way where we can continuously buy, where the answer is always yes. If the price is right, we're going to buy it. And literally at one point if I didn't buy something for 2 weeks, I would start getting antsy.
Well, hey, listen, one thing I'm going to give you a piece of advice on, Peter, is you have to pay yourself. If you haven't checked out my podcast interview with David Richter, he's the guy who wrote, he didn't write the book called Profit First, which is really the foundation, but he wrote Profit First for real estate investors. So do check that out. And for all of these out there who don't pay themselves, make sure you check that out as well. But anyways, I'll let you continue.
Yeah. And the thing was, I mean, of course, like I've kept my expenses as low as possible, right? If I don't send mailers or I don't have extra lavish like lifestyle, I've kept my expenses low and always being on the radar of other companies who are sending mailers who want to get liquidated, right? Where they'll keep a couple for themselves and they'll sell you half their new deals. And of course, we put in this for us to really hit the scale when we were originally starting, where we had like capital problems. I bought stuff on land arb.
Land arb?
Yeah, land arbitrage. So, which is really cool. So it's like, let's say that you have a land company and you have 10 pieces of land and you want the monthly payments from them. You want the owner financing notes. So what you would do is you would sell them to me, all 10 of them, on owner financing, except at a wholesale price. And then I would turn around and resell each parcel separately on for retail prices. And that was like a way that really helped us like overcome some of our cash flow or capital problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and then we took all that and then reinvested it and then just kept doing that, and then it got out of hand very quickly for the better, though. But
I could imagine somebody who's handling your books is having a good time right now.
Oh, they're having a wonderful time. But
I love that. It's really interesting, Pete. You're really sort of rethinking a lot of things and really putting your thought into how you can approach things. And I really encourage a lot of land investors, although we're always told from a guru or somebody who taught us how to run our land business, it isn't the only way to do it. And Peter obviously here has figured that out. And I always encourage people to do even small things. Don't take everything as the word for face value. I mean, even for example, your mailers. I talk a lot about this. Experimenting. Doing split tests with your mailing. Approaching things differently, finding where the opportunities are, because there is always opportunity. Once you sort of come out into the land space and just follow what everybody else is doing, you're not going to be able to find as much opportunity. So really, as soon as you figure out what the foundation is, start experimenting. It doesn't have to be really big. Take little small steps to push yourself to try different things from what everybody else is doing. I mean, Pete, you've obviously taken a different road than most land investors are taking. Now, let me ask you this. All sounds great. You're buying properties at wholesale. You're making a profit by then, putting some marketing love into it, essentially. But what would you say is the most challenging thing with this approach?
I would say the most challenging thing is when you're doing low cost properties. So like $99 a month, no huge down payment. So our company, we do no interest no credit checks and no extra fees is kind of the this marketing slogan.
Wow. Yeah.
And we don't do the whole 20% down payment or 10%
Okay.
down payment. Your down payment is the first month's payment. Um,
Okay.
the problem with that, though, is you have to have a really a system that can scale for a lot of requests. So you will have a lot of people who sign up on your website who will cancel on you. But again, our whole model is numbers. Like we just do volume. So even
Yeah.
if, some people cancel, so be it. We have to
Yeah.
have great technology and tools that enable us to scale. Um, Even like, are you going to be able to pick up the phone call? Right? If you're doing this part time,
Yeah.
or if you don't want to pick up the phone call, which some people, I totally understand that, you want to have an answering service, right? So we use things like Answer Force that takes all of our calls. So having those systems and processes, I would say, is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And, I would say the way you can overcome that is, using great technology. I would say that's number one, because a lot of the things that we do, for the most part, can be automated and should be automated. Um,
Yeah.
and then everything that I can't do, of course, I delegate to our VAs and people like that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's that's sort of what scaling is all about. When we're talking about scaling any business, it's leveraging two things: it's software and technology, and people. It's still hard to replace people. I mean, as great and as scary as AI sometimes sound, we're still far from it, I believe. Um,
Yep.
I mean, look at trying to even solve self-driving is still a very, very difficult problem, right? So again, two things I think that are incredible value to anybody who's looking to scale. So you mentioned a couple pieces of tools you use. You use something called, was it Answer Force?
Answer Force, it's similar to Pat Live.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And I'll
It's
include
this.
that in the show notes. Yeah. What's the big difference between Pat Live and Answer Force? Why Answer Force?
I am not exactly sure. I think they just called me back first. And
There you go.
yeah, and they seem to have like their pricing seems reasonable. So I
Yeah.
was like, if I don't do this now, I'm gonna forget about it. So let's just
Got
roll
it.
and get this thing
Yeah.
done. Um,
So I want to come back to the actual strategy itself. What would you say? I mean, you said it helped you to get scaled up, you know, the fastest way possible for you guys, especially. What would you say is sort of the if you could narrow down on 1 to 3 different things that going your approach has made land investing very easy? What would those things be, or what are sort of the biggest advantages if it's given you to focus on marketing?
I don't have to worry. The first thing I would say is I don't have to worry about how the mailers are going to do, or it's more consistent. And now that we've opened up, actually, like how I've been purchasing from wholesalers, now I was actually thinking, and we actually launched it last week, where there are other land companies now that we're going to supply. We're gonna
Wow.
offer, like, so the wholesale side of our business now is we're gonna um, have a land arb side. So if they want to purchase in bulk and they don't want to put up the cash to buy all these properties, we'll owner finance it to you, right?
Yeah.
And that has been really interesting because, number one, it gives you crazy leverage, right? Instead of spending $1,000 to buy one property, you're putting up $1,000 to buy 20. And so your risk is a lot lower. So the
Right.
second thing I would say is my risk was lowered, right? Instead of trying to figure out how I can get $100,000 to go buy all these properties, I'm buying that same amount of property with very little out of my pocket. Yes, I'm not going to make the same amount of margin, but when you look at it on like a return on investment basis for every dollar that you put out, it becomes very there's like an exponential return compared to if you were trying to buy 100% equity in every single property, but rather
Sure.
just keeping an option to purchase that property.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Um, Now, we actually hopped on a call to talk about mailing too. I mean, this is something you're considering to do. What is it about mailing that you'd like to do? Is it sort of another branch of your business that you're looking to open up on?
Yeah, the part where I want to use Pebble that I'm really excited for is actually our like this is it's basically wholesaling, like true wholesaling, not like what I was talking
Right.
about buying in bulk earlier. So I want to
Sure.
basically start a side of our business where we can buy an option or have, do contract assignment where we can
Yeah.
negotiate a deal with the owner of the property who wants $20,000, and they give it to us under contract for 90 days to 120 days, and we go
Mm.
and flip that contract for 30 or 40,000 hopefully.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so I wanted to build that side out too, because again, that is like less capital intensive.
Right.
um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of where I'm excited to use Pebble for, like our website on the buying and selling side,
Yeah.
and for sending mailers to those, because every deal that we do there is going to make us, a five-figure margin.
Right.
So
Right.
that's how I really think that we could benefit a lot from sending mailers.
Yeah, and just to let you know, and for those of you who are listening, I had someone by the name of Lucas Miller, episode number 51. Pete, I might have told you this already, but we talk all about his wholesaling. He came from the multifamily home area and started wholesaling. And got scaled up in 10 months. And that's where I kind of spoke to him. He was also a huge fan of split testing and doing different types of mailers. And have a listen to that show. I'm sure you guys will get a lot out of it. Again, he focuses only on wholesaling as well. Um, Pete, I want to say thank you for coming on the show here and revealing some of the things that you do. I'm always amazed by the amount of value people are willing to help others with in the land space. It's very different, I found. I also started in the wholesaling area. It's very different from a lot of the different real estate, I guess, industries that I've sort of
Yeah.
observed. And everybody's always been super, super helpful and just genuine here. Um, Pete, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, obviously now you have your TikTok. They now know where to find you on TikTok. But if somebody wanted to work with you, I'm sure there's going to be some people who want to contact you. What's the best way they can get a hold of you, Pete?
Jesse, is it okay if I share my number on here?
You go right ahead. If you want to share where you live,
You,
feel free.
yeah, you know what? Actually, I will just do the email. It's sales. Yeah, sales at onceuponabrick.com. Or if you actually call our customer service number, which is actually what I'm going to share instead of my number, is um, and I can definitely reach back out if you wanted to get in touch and talk about like buying wholesale or things like that. That is definitely something I'm open to, and that number is 866-948-3350. So that's our
Well, that,
customer service thing.
yeah, and then how do they get a hold of you through that number?
Oh, I see all the messages that come in. So I get reports on like daily calls and what the call was about.
Okay.
So, and I'll definitely reach back out. But
Awesome. So Pete will be there to find your contact if you decide to
yeah.
want to call, give him a call, and if you wanted to work with Pete. Pete, you're still new in the land space. I mean, you're 24. It's only a couple years in. Any general land advice you can give those that are getting started, want to explore land, and especially because again you're still, I mean, you're 2 years in, you're still fresh in there. Is there something that you can remember that was really impactful for you when you got started that you want to share with others?
I think without any hesitation, the best absolute piece of advice that I can share, or advice, because this is what I did, I would say, is to constantly reach out to other land companies and people who are in the land space. Literally, to give you an example, the other day, so when I told you that we're going to start selling wholesale to other land investors, I just looked up land in the contacts in my phone. There was a list of 20 to 30 land companies and the owners, and all I did was I said, hey, I'm selling this portfolio, it's this many lots, it's this many, this much price. I was able to text them. I just texted all of them. And to have that list be in your phone, of people that that you've already invested and built that relationship and talked to them, they know you and you've done a deal or two with them. every single person almost texted me back within like 2 hours. And that can be extremely valuable. That is how I learned a lot. I did not buy any course on the land business stuff. I just kind of listened to podcasts, called people and said, "Hey, can I buy from you?" And they taught me how to go about it. I didn't even know how to record a deed or all of that. So literally, it's more often than not, most people are willing to help you who are already in this space. So if you just reach out to them and have like your list of the people that you work with, um, and you would be surprised how well that goes.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
would be my only real piece of advice that I have for those that are starting.
I love it. I love it. Pete, thank you very much for coming on this episode here and again, sharing your insights and what you're doing differently from everybody else. If you want to work with Pete, you know where to get at him. The show notes will have all that contact information. Pete, once again, thanks very much.
You got it. Thanks, Jesse.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Yep.
Before you stop this podcast or head to the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Conversion Podcast. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate an awesome review and rating on whichever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the REI Conversion Podcast or this specific episode that may help them on their investing journey. Once again, thanks very much for listening and catch you on our next episode.